Hello everyone, Jessica here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a great day. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Make a Scene. For this card, I was sitting down to make a scene using the Kindred Stamps Plumber Brothers set. I had an idea of what I was going to be making, but then I caught Christina Warner's One Color Challenge on YouTube. Her video is fantastic. First, I wanted to pick a color. I already knew the stamps that I was going to be using, but wasn't sure on which characters. So I let the color help me decide. I went through my swatches of watercolors and picked out one of my favorite colors, Viridian Hue. I have this color in the Koi Watercolors 24 pan pocket field sketch box. Since it was a green color, I thought the little toadstool guy would be really fun to paint. I'm stamping all the characters that I might need, which I did end up using all of them, onto a piece of Arches cold press watercolor paper. I love using this paper. It is expensive, but I think it helps make my watercoloring better. I'm using Versafine Oynx black ink because it is waterproof. I find it easily stamps on this textured watercolor paper, but it is a very messy ink, and I did not heat set it, which I should have. I did have some smudging because of that mistake. So after stamping the images, I go into watercoloring, which I don't know if my camera just stopped recording or if I never hit that record button, but the entirety of the watercoloring was not recorded. So I do apologize for that, but I did restamp the toadstool guys on a scrap piece of watercolor paper so that you can see what I'm doing. Using my glass mat, I mix the Viridian Hue with water right onto the glass. I'm making this pretty concentrated, and I will water it down to use as lighter shades when needed. Using the tip that Christina said in her video, I start off with a medium shade for the dark areas. Now, she used images with large open areas, and the ones I'm doing have many smaller sections, but you can get the same effect. And by the way, I do have her video linked below. If you have not seen it yet, please go check it out. So I laid the medium wash down first, then added the more concentrated paint to the shadows. After letting that sit a moment while I color a few other of the characters, I blend out with clean water, or sometimes if it's still too much of an edge, I'll blend with a light wash of color too. I knew I would need some contrast within the character portions, so the mushroom head part, the vest, mouth, and shoes are my darkest areas. Everything else except for the circles, which will have no color, it's just the paper, will be colored lighter by adding more water to the paint to thin it down. The paintbrush I'm using is a Royal Langnickel Zen watercolor brush, and this is a number 5 round. These are really inexpensive watercolor brushes. I have one that is a little more expensive. It's a connoisseur, and I use that one for the actual background, but this one I'm using for the detailed portions. It has a nice fine tip on the end. I think my second attempt here turned out a bit better than the first ones. Practice definitely helps, and knowing how your paint reacts with the paper you're using is useful. Now back to the first coloring. I'm starting on the sky. I wetted the top 2/3 with some clean water, then just dabbed in some color to make the clouds. And I just dabbed it in certain areas. I'm letting that paint move and fade out, kind of letting it do what it naturally wants to do. I use a microfiber cloth to blot up any of the areas that are too heavy in color. Plus, by using the cloth creates a nice texture, and it is the same color as the watercolor paint, which I found amusing. I do heat set the sky portion and then lay down a dark flat wash for the ground of the background. Since I have the blocks I stamped earlier, I don't worry too much about how it looks because most of it will be covered, but I do create some rolling hills so that it isn't just a straight line. Now I can fussy cut out my images. I use the Fiskars spring-loaded scissors and trim out all the images with a white border except for those bricks. Then I cut the whole background panel down to 4 inches by 5¼ inches. It will layer nicely on a A2 size card panel. I left the left side alone because I like the texture of that paint on that side the most. So I didn't cut that side at all. I'm taking some scrap pieces of Neenah Solar White in 110 pound and cutting them to fit behind the bricks, pipe, mushroom, and the question box. This will add some depth, but won't be so noticeable like if I had added dimension with foam tape or fun foam. I cut 2 layers to fit behind those images and adhere them together with the multimedia matte glue. Plus this Arches paper is 140 pounds, so it's definitely sturdy all on its own. Then I plot my scene. I play around with all the elements, trying to get a feel on where they might fit. This just gives me a rough idea on where things will be, and I can make sure the sentiment will fit well before stamping it directly to the background. I pulled out the Ink Road Compliments Volume 1 stamp set, and I'm using the one that says, "You deserve royal subjects," which I thought was fitting for these cute little toadstools. I also stamped the sentiment in the Versafine ink, which took several impressions. This font has some pretty thin lines, so it took just a little more effort to get a solid impression. Then I heat set it with my heat tool. Yep, I did remember this time to heat set that ink. I attach everything to the background with my ATG gun, starting with the bricks and build up from there. I had cut the pipe and piranha flower as 1 image, but the question box and small mushroom as 2. That way I could layer the mushroom slightly behind the question box so it looks like it's popping up out of it. If you ever played the Mario games, you know what I'm talking about. So I thought these 5 little toadstool guys would be cute all grouped together, layered over each other. I didn't use any dimension or anything to pop them up. They're just adhered right over one another. And then I used my ATG gun to attach this card panel to a card base. It's a Neenah 110 pound solar white card base. And the ATG gun is a pretty strong adhesive. It's kind of warped from the watercolor, but it will definitely hold it to the card base. For the inside, I kept it simple. I used the Ink Road Block Alpha Party outline letters and stamped them individually so that it says happy birthday. And I made them a little crooked on purpose, so that wasn't a mistake. And then I stamped the 1-Up mushroom with Lucky Clover Destructs Oxide ink on that lower right hand corner and stamped the 1-Up right above it. After everything was said and done, I did cut off that little portion of the block on the right hand side, so there's a bigger gap. And then I also moved the piranha plant and the pipe up. That was all just little cosmetic surgery there. I thought it looked better this way. And that's it from me. Stay tuned for a few pictures. I hope you enjoyed today's video. You can connect with me on Instagram or email me directly or comment below with any questions you might have about card making. All the products I used today are linked on my blog. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to see the latest videos from me. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Meh, meh.